Hi everyone. This lesson will focus on the links or interplay that exists between human culture on the one hand and human biology. We humans have a number of biological features that have enabled us to create culture. If you'll focus on page 12 of Study Guide 1, you'll see the most important of these highlighted. Focusing first and foremost on number 1, fully erect posture. It's important to remember that, as is noted in the study guide, and here is a photograph of the human skeleton and a diagram to the right. This fascinating and interesting physical characteristic of human beings highlights the fact that we can use our lower limbs for activities other than movement. And what's particularly interesting about our upper limbs has to do again with the structure of the hand. We humans have fully opposable thumbs, which implies that we can move the thumb in the opposite direction of the other 4 digits. This diagram kind of illustrates the point, and it permits us, fascinatingly enough, to in effect have 2 distinctive types of grip. But again, because of the opposable thumb, we can grip things. Now we have what is sometimes referred to as a power grip, in which I'm using all 5 digits. On the other hand, we have what is referred to as a precision grip, in which we're using only 2 digits. But with both hands, you notice we can engage in a wide variety of interesting activities, like threading a needle. That would be impossible without opposable thumbs. Now, because we have fully opposable thumbs, there are things we can do that, for example, could dogs do this? Well, of course not. So, because of fully erect posture, we're able to use our upper limbs for important activities other than, in effect, locomotion. And one of the most important might have to do with creating and using tools. Now, a tool is anything that makes work easier. And here's a question for you to contemplate. Are humans the only creatures that will employ or use tools? Do you know other creatures off the top of your head that you can identify with no problems whatsoever that employ tools? Although this photograph may not be as clear or distinct as you would like, that's a photograph of an otter. And most of you know that otters do use tools. It's often a stone, which they'll roll over, float, as you see here, and then they'll take freshwater mussels that they've collected and literally crash them against a stone in an effort to break them apart. Some of you are probably also aware of the fact that there are a number of species of birds, like this New Caledonian crow, that will also use tools. In this particular case, a thin branch. In some cases, birds will use a cactus spine to extract grubs from a tree. One of my all-time favorites, though, is the Egyptian vulture. And this is a really interesting photograph from National Geographic that highlights how Egyptian vultures do their thing. In this particular case, you'll notice a stone in the beak, which he's going to drop onto this egg. In some cases, they'll actually throw the stone. So we are by no means tool users. There are other creatures that do this. And remember, tool use is you're picking up anything of convenient shape and size and using it to solve a problem, to meet a particular need. You're not altering the object in any form or fashion. But what's very interesting about we human beings is the fact that we don't only use tools, we make tools. But once again, this is something that is not unique to humans. This is a very interesting photograph, and it highlights chimpanzees. If you're wondering what all of this is, it's a termite nest. In Africa, some of these things can tower many feet into the air. And the mud-like composition that makes them up, it really takes on the resistance of reinforced concrete. So it's very difficult just using fingers alone to get into it. But what, again, enterprising chimps will do is pick up a branch from a tree. Sometimes they'll strip it of its vegetation, leaves, and even maybe pull the bark off, run it through their mouths to attach a little saliva to it. Then they'll look around this termite nest to find an air passage. And they'll actually insert, again, the branch into the air passage. And this particular photograph highlights what takes place next. They'll leave it in the air passage for a brief period of time, and what will happen is termites congregate around the end. They'll pull it out, and there'll be termites hanging on to the end, which they will then consume. This is a really effective illustration of, certainly by our standards, maybe crude, but not just tool using, but remember, when you make a tool, you're altering an existing object to make a more efficient implement. And humans have been doing this for a very long period of time. Some of you undoubtedly have seen photographs of chipped stone tools like these. Well, they were once just part of a larger piece of flint or other stone that could be worked for stone tool purposes. And again, prehistoric peoples knocked off a flake, and then they might use it as is. Later on, they developed techniques by which, using a wood punch or a bone punch, they could actually work the edges to make these tools even sharper and more efficient, and in some cases even smaller. And if you'll notice here, there's a wide variety of tools that these wonderful tool makers were able to create. Today, through modern technology, we've created rather sophisticated tools. I suspect you all recognize these as well as these. So all of this is possible because of the fact we human beings are marked by erect posture. We don't have to rely on our upper limbs for purposes of locomotion. We can use, they don't just hang around, we use them for purposes other than movement. Now, if you'll go back to the study guide, I want you to highlight the fact that another very, very important feature that we human beings possess is that of stereoscopic or binocular vision. Part of the reason for this is that in the human skull, the eye orbits are located pretty close to the center part of the face. The optic nerve runs through both hemispheres of the brain, and it allows the eyes to, in effect, kind of overlap. That permits stereoscopic or binocular vision, depth perception. Can you imagine for just a moment Tarzan swinging through the trees without, again, the benefit of stereoscopic or binocular vision? Boom. Tarzan is no more. Try to imagine driving an automobile, shooting baskets, playing basketball, playing tennis, using a bow and arrow without depth perception. And I think you can appreciate the value and the significance of this remarkable physical characteristic. Add to that, we humans have the capacity for color perception. And in the past, distinguishing among colors might have made the difference between life and death. I know my grandfather used to collect wild mushrooms. He tried to teach me to distinguish between a poisonous and an edible mushroom, but I never could get the combinations, the color combinations down. Think about how important color perception is to us in our modern day, so to speak, or contemporary society. Look no further than the nearest traffic signals. Now, a third and equally important physiological feature that has allowed us to create culture is that we humans have a greater capacity to learn. And it's important that you remember, and this is something that I highlighted in the first lesson, much, if not all, of culture is really, in effect, learned. Now, we do observe, we do imitate, but we learn it. And a lot of this is due to the complex nature of the human brain. Particularly, the brain is well developed in the frontal areas. These having to do a great deal with cognition and learning. You tie in an elaborate and complex nervous system with a central cord, we learn readily. Now, other animals learn, but we survive through learning. We don't have to rely on biological factors or elements to allow us to adjust to changing conditions. We do it through learning. Now, fourth and finally, we human beings have the capacity for complex symbolic communication, attaching meanings to anything and everything. The basis for this is language, and it ties in again to our elaborate and complex brain. And this is a topic that we'll discuss in greater detail in the next lesson. See you then.